Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Translation. The four kinds of paraphernalia for conducting the fire sacrifice became manifest. The performer, the chanter, the offerer, the fire, and the action performed in terms of supplementary Vedas. Also, the four principles of religiosity, truth, austerity, mercy, and cleanliness, and the duties in the four social orders all became manifest. Purport. Eating, sleeping, defending, and mating are the four principles of material bodily demands which are common to both animals and human society. To distinguish human society from the animals, there is the performance of religious activities in terms of the social statuses and orders of life. They are all clearly mentioned in the Vedic literatures and were manifested by Brahma when the four Vedas were generated from four mouths. Thus, the duties of humankind in terms of statuses and social orders were established to be observed by the civilized man. Those who traditionally follow these principles are called Aryans or progressive human beings. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport. So, Brahma is continuing, is performing his duties in creating different elements. So, he created all his sons, those known as Prajapatis, then some other different principles. So in the previous verse, it was mentioned that the four Vedas became manifested from the four mouths of Brahma. So because Brahmaji has four head, so from the four mouths, four Vedas became manifested. So in this verse, it's mentioned that after the Vedas, so next items which were created was the four kinds of paraphernalia for conducting the fire sacrifice. So here it's mentioned that what are those four kinds of paraphernalia? The performer, the chanter, a person who chants the Vedic mantras, the offerer, one who offers oblation, ghee, and other offerings to the in the fire sacrifice, the fire itself, and the action performed in terms of supplementary Vedas. So, how to perform fire sacrifice? That's elaborated in the Vedas as well as more elaborate in the supplementary Vedas. Supplementary Vedas means Upavedas or Puranas. Puranas are known as supplementary Vedas. So there it's mentioned that how the procedure to conduct the fire sacrifice, what are the rules and regulations, all those things are explained. So these four became manifested. Then after these four items, so the next items were the four principles of religiosity, the four pillars of dharma, so truth, satyam, austerity, tapasya, mercy, daya, and cleanliness, saucha. So all these became manifested. So the four regulative principles were manifested from the Lord Brahma's body. And the duties in the four social orders all became manifest. So social orders are Varna and Ashrama. So four Varnas and four Ashramas. All these became manifested after the creation of the Vedas from the four mouths of Lord Brahma. So Prabhupada here is a very important point, Prabhupada mentioning that. So what is the similarity between human beings and animals? So eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. So these four principles are known as material bodily demands, which are common to both animals and human beings. So what distinguishes a person from animal is that, Prabhupada here mentioned, to distinguish human society from animals, there is performance of religious activities in terms of social statuses and orders. So distinguish human beings means there are certain religious activities mentioned, just like one is the fire sacrifice, the performance of sacrifice. So those activities are mentioned so that they are distinguished from the animals. So Vedas, in the Vedas, generally we see Vedas are known as manuals for human beings or the living entities, how to live a very peaceful and religious life in this world. That's why in the Vedas, Karma Kanda portion, Jnana Kanda portion, and Upasana Kanda. So Karma Kanda portion is basically you perform this activity. While performing this activity, keep this in mind so you don't incur any kind of sinful activity. So you perform this pious activity, you will get this result. So some kind of a incentive for the human beings to perform such religious activities are mentioned. So in the Vedas. So why? What is the purpose? Why it is mentioned? All kind of pious activities, which may not be the ultimate, which may not provide ultimate benefit to human beings. So that because a person who is like an animal, to move him from animal consciousness to human consciousness, a gradual elevation process is mentioned in the Vedas. So that at least you come out of the animal consciousness, come to the human consciousness. What is right, what is wrong. So then he will be able to understand, okay, so he has attained a platform of piety, and then he can think of liberation. Dharma, Artha, Kama and Moksha. So dharma, we perform religious principles for what? To gain some profit. That's what Vedas mention. You perform, if you want a son, you perform this austerity, this tapasya, this fire sacrifice, like Putra Kameshti Yajna. If you want riches, you perform another kind of yajna. If you want beautiful, family, or you want lot of name and fame. So for everything, there is a prescription is there where you perform so and so activity. So that means dharma. From dharma, that leads to artha. So economic development, money. So he will gain some pious activities. So pious activities are basically his pious credits, a positive bank account which he can enjoy eventually in his life. Then after once he acquires artha, then he will enjoy that artha. So kama, enjoyment. So then when he is sufficiently, when he is enjoyed to his some extent, so then he will think of liberation. That is known as moksha. So this is known as 4 purusharthas. So Vedas basically explain that how a human being can gradually come to the stage of liberation. One may not, for an animal person with an animal consciousness, for him if you tell directly about liberation, he may not be able to accept it or appreciate it. He may directly reject because he cannot think beyond what he can see. That is sense gratification. So for him, a gradual elevation process is mentioned in the Vedas. So, but modern science, the problem with the modern science or modern civilization is that people, even though, okay, here, before we even discuss about this, so material prosperity, artha, so material prosperity is meant for what? Yes, of course, you can do to some certain level of sense gratification, that is kama, but ultimately it leads to liberation, not just be in the level of kama only. So, but what is the shortcoming, the limitation of this modern civilization? People, so they think that civilization means advancement of civilization, advancement of economic development means, so they don't have a goal of that ultimately we should reach to the stage of liberation. What they think is about just sense gratification. So, artha does not mean the improvement in the way of living, the status of life. Artha is not that. Artha basically, it is a means to reach to the stage of liberation. But the modern people, they don't know this simple fact. Vedic literatures, the Vedas, like Srimad Bhagavatam is stressing so much, but they don't, unfortunate, they don't even come to this level of liberation. Forget about going back to God. Even liberation, they don't even come. So recently in WhatsApp, there was a post that a Japanese man, he had a dream from his childhood that he wanted to become a dog. So he from childhood he was cultivating that desire that I should become a dog. So he earned money, then he spent his money, 12 lakh rupees, some 2 million yens, I think in the Japanese currency. So it comes to around 12 lakh rupees. So he spent 12 lakh rupees to design a customized outfit wherein he can look like a dog. So now he is wearing that outfit, so that he can roll, he can jump like a dog, and his desire was that wife should carry him, put a chain on his neck and carry when she is going for morning and evening walk. So she is doing that. So this is what economic development artha. If you don't know what is the actually goal of artha, we will end up in this kind of thing. This is known as modern civilization. They considered it as one of the economic development. economic revolutions. Very, very unfortunate. You have got a rare human form. Prahlad Maharaj says, no, to get a human form is very, very rare. Durlabham manusham janma. But after getting human form, instead of further advancing, even gradually at least, but he's there degrading more. So he wants to become a dog. So that's what Prabhupada is mentioning that. So why these religious activities in terms of social statuses and orders are mentioned to distinguish humans from the human society from the animals. Not to become animals again. So, as mentioned here, the four kinds of paraphernalia were manifested. So, Brahmaji, in another place in Srimad Bhagavatam, he mentions that, how he performed, when he was born, because these are the requirements as mentioned in the Vedas. But when he was born, what was the condition? Then how did he perform fire sacrifice, yajna? Yajna means what? Basically, yajna is another name of Vishnu. Yajna is another name of Vishnu. Vishnu, to satisfy Vishnu is known as yajna. Yajna tat karmano anyatra. So one should perform yajna for the satisfaction of Vishnu. So if not, what happens? Karma bandhanaha. So he will be bound by the activities of this material world. So for all the social orders, for all the spiritual orders, so yajna is particularly mentioned. We'll come to that. So Brahmaji, in one of the previous this thing, is recalling how he performed yajna when he was born. So it's from second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. When I was born from abdominal lotus flower of the Lord, I had no ingredients for sacrificial performances except the bodily limbs of the great personality of Godhead. So because only Mahavishnu was there, after Mahavishnu he is the first living entity. So when he was born, nothing was there. That's why we are reading that after Brahma, then he meditated, then he underwent austerity, received instructions from the Lord, then he started creating the different ingredients like Prajapatis, Vedas, and other ingredients as mentioned in the today's verse and in the further verses. So before that, how he was performing yajna? So Brahmaji is mentioning. So for next verse, for performing sacrificial ceremonies, one requires sacrificial ingredients such as flowers, leaves, and straw, along with sacrificial altar and a suitable time. So these are all the ingredients which are required, which Brahma himself is saying. Next, other requirements are utensils, grains, clarified butter, honey, gold, earth, water, the Rigveda, Yajurveda, Samaveda, and 4 priests to perform the sacrifice. Like here it is mentioned that when Brahma created 4 paraphernalia, so he created the performer, the sacrifice. The performer, that means the person who performs the fire sacrifice, or the mantra chanter. So like here Brahma is mentioning that all these ingredients like gold, water, arena, altar, and along with that 4 priests to perform the sacrifice. So Brahmaji is little elaborating on this subject matter, that what are those 4 peoples required to perform the fire sacrifice. So next, other necessities include invoking the different names of the demigods by specific hymns and vows of recompense in accordance with particular scripture for specific purpose and for the specific activity. So then who are those 4 persons? Thus I had to arrange all these necessary ingredients and paraphernalia of sacrifice from the So the 4 personalities, the 4 persons those are required are mentioned in this purport. Prabhupada mentions that. So the first person is Hota. Hota means the Hotru, or the person who chants the Vedic hymns as per the Rigveda. So basically the mantras what we chant, most of them are from Rigveda, which Rigveda actually is specifically meant to praise the deity, glorify the deities. So then next person required is Advaryu. Advaryu is the person one who looks after conducting the fire sacrifice. Then third person is Udgata. Udgata means who chants the mantras from the Samaveda to please the deities. First one was Hota. He chants the mantras from Rigveda. So here third person we mentioned is Samaveda, the person who chants the mantras from the Samaveda. So these are the 3 persons. The 4th person which mentioned is known as a Brahmin supervising the sacrifice. There is a Brahmin supervising the sacrifice and he is called Brahma. So Hota, Udgata, and Advaryu and Brahma. These are the 4 persons required to perform the fire sacrifice. So then, what Prabhupada mentions in the purport is that when these different 4 persons are required to perform the fire sacrifice, to perform a sacrifice successfully, at least 4 expert priests are needed. One who can offer hota, one who can chant udgata, one who can kindle the sacrificial fire without the aid of separate fire advaryu, and one who can supervise Brahma. So sacrifices were conducted from the birth of Brahma, the first living entity, the first living creature, because he has to set example. So even though he didn't have any ingredients, he used the bodily parts of Lord Vishnu as the ingredients and he performed yajna, because no other ingredients were available. But such expert Brahman priests are very rare in this age of corruption and quarrel, and therefore in the present age, only yajna of chanting the holy names of the Lord is recommended. The scriptures enjoin Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Namaiva Kevalam, Kalo Nasteva, Nasteva, Nasteva Gatiranyata. So as mentioned, the person one who, Advayu means a person one who can kindle the sacrificial fire without the aid of separate fire. He will not use matchbox. So he will invoke the fire god into the yajna kunda, and that's how they ignite. So that means that kind of pure Brahmins are required. So but in Kali Yuga, that's not possible. That's why Prabhupada is saying simply Harinam Sankirtan is the only kind of yajna which we can successfully do. Because others one, we are not purified enough. We don't get such a purified Brahmanas to conduct the fire sacrifices. So then Brahma then finally is mentioning that, because no other ingredients were available, so I used the bodily limbs of the Vishnu as the ingredients and I performed yajna. And then further, that's how he then even underwent austerities, then he received the instructions from the Lord. So the next purport is mentioning here in this purport. They are very clearly mentioned in the Vedic literatures and are manifested by Brahma when the 4 Vedas were generated from his 4 mouths. Thus, the duties of humankind in terms of statuses and social orders were established to be observed by the civilized men. So, civilized men we call modern civilization. So, civilization means that a person is becoming civilized. So, a civilized man is supposed to perform these kinds of fire sacrifices. Then only is known as civilized. So then, what is supposed to do? So that's mentioned in terms of social statuses and spiritual orders. So social statuses include what are the 4 social statuses? Varna and Ashrama. Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra. So these are known as social orders. And then next 4 spiritual orders. Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanaprastha and Sannyas. So for all these 4 social orders and 4 spiritual orders, Varna and Ashrama. So the regulatory principles, the prescribed duties are mentioned, what they are supposed to do. So they are supposed to follow those. So that they can become perfect, they can become purified in their activities and go back to Godhead. So but if they are not following, what will happen actually? So Prabhupada last in that purport mentions, those who traditionally follow these principles are called Aryans or progressive human beings, Aryans. So those who are following this are known as Aryans, otherwise they are known as non-Aryans. That's what different races which, in the Bhagavatam mentions about Huna, Andhra, Kirata. So they are all known as non-Aryans because they don't follow these injunctions of the Varna and Ashrama. So in our social studies, in our school days, in our when you were in the 10th, 11th and 12th, we have read about Aryan invasion theory. Remember? Aryan invasion theory we have read. So what does that mean, Aryan invasion theory? So when I read this, actually I remembered that. So our social history says that Aryans are the persons, those who came from somewhere else. They are not Indians. Indian civilization was known as Dravidian civilization. So basically India predominantly was a Dravidian civilization. So Aryans, they came from somewhere else and they invaded India and they almost wiped out the Dravidian culture. That's what some of the social studies they mention. So then according to them, what was there before the Aryans came into India? So that known as Indus Valley civilization. This also we have read. So Indus Valley civilization was one of the very prominent, very rich, very prosperous civilization. So they even say the city known as Harappan, which was later excavated. So that was the capital of that Indus Valley civilization, which is presently in the Punjab province of Pakistan. So as per that Harappan, Indus Valley civilization. So in the Harappan civilization, they call it also Harappan civilization, that was spread in the most parts of North India. And South India was predominantly Dravidian civilization. But the Aryans came, the invaded Aryans were basically Europeans. So they came somewhere in the 20th century, in the beginning of 20th century, they came, invaded, and they dominated over Harappan civilization, and they established, Aryan civilization. So this is a completely a wrong theory as per the Vedic civilization. We know that Aryan civilization is not something which came from outside of India. It actually originated from India. Not originated, it existed from the beginning of this Bharatavarsha. That's known as Vedic civilization. So Vedic civilization is basically, Aryan civilization is basically Vedic civilization. So now there are many such, again further, research and R&D or researchers by different scholars saying that this Aryan invasion theory is not actually right. Aryans are not, people, those who came somewhere from outside. Aryans were actually there from beginning in India. This is something, to prove that Britishers, when they came, to support them or to glorify them, some scholars, they concocted a theory known as, Aryan invasion theory. So, but we very clearly understand that, this is not just, few hundreds or 1,000-year old. It's from the time immemorial, ever since the human being came into existence. So from then, Aryan civilization parallelly exists. Aryans means basically what? Prabhupada here mentioning progressive human beings. So those who are really want to come to rise above the animalistic civilization, they are known as Aryans. And non-Aryans means like the person who wants to become a dog. Even after getting a human form of life, he wants to become a dog again. Actually, they are known as non-Aryans. So even in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains about Aryans. So we can understand Bhagavad Gita spoken 5,000 years back. So that time also Krishna explained about what is, who is Arya. In the second verse, after Arjuna gives all very wonderful logics not to fight in the Kurukshetra. So he gives all logic, morally speaking, ethically speaking, they all look very wonderful theories. So he's saying that, if I fight, my own kinsmen, my own relatives, I'll kill them. And when I kill them, so because men are in the battlefield, so behind in the kingdom those are small children, women and old age people who will take care of them. Women will become corrupted. Children will become completely, without any care. They will go into the wrong, they'll go into the wrong hands. And old age people, no one will be taken. And after they die, no one will be there to offer oblations into them, tarpana. So all this theory looks, from moral point of view, ethical point of view, looks very great. So, but immediately after the Arjuna finished his speaking, Krishna is telling, Kutastvam kashmalamidam vishame samupastitam anarya justam asvargam akirtikaram Arjuna. So here Krishna is referring to anarya justam. So what is anarya justam? Anarya justam, in the word-to-word meaning Prabhupada mentions, persons who do not know the value of life. Like here in the purport Prabhupada mentioning, Aryan means progressive human beings. So here Prabhupada is mentioning persons who do not know the value of life. So progress, everyone is making progress. Someone is making progress in a positive direction, someone is making progress in a negative direction. So civilization means some progress has to happen. But a person who makes positive progress towards the back to Godhead, towards the liberation, mukti, they are known as Aryans. Otherwise, there are so many people, presently, there are countries with, filthy rich countries. They don't have any problem. They're so beautiful. Few days back, there was one WhatsApp image. They had compared those people, those who doesn't consider river as mothers, or rivers as rivers, how they maintain rivers, and we consider rivers as mothers, and how do we maintain? So means they are also progressing. The rivers are very nicely maintained, but they are not called as Aryans. They are very rich. They are very beautiful. Their cleanliness, with respect to cleanliness, with respect to their way of living, the cost of living, everything is super. But still, they are not called as Aryans, because that is not those kind of developments, those kind of civilizations are not considered as the progressive civilizations. They are basically without Krishna consciousness, without coming to a conclusion that we should actually nate vidugartha swartha gatim hi Vishnu. So unless one comes to this understanding, that civilization, that progress is not called as actually progress. So that's what here Prabhupada is mentioning. Arya means anarya, persons who do not know the value of life. If you doesn't understand that you are a spirit soul, you are supposed to you are supposed to do Brahma Jigyasa. As a Brahman, you are supposed to do Brahma Jigyasa. If you don't understand this fact, then you are not at all Aryan. So then in the translation, Prabhupada mentions the Supreme Person said, "My dear Arjuna, how have all these impurities come upon you? They are not at all befitting a man who knows the progressive values of life. They do not lead to higher planets, but to infamy." Akirtikaram Arjuna. Infamy. So in the purport, it's a very long purport. In the last, Prabhupada mentions about this Aryan, non-Arya. So such unmanly sentiments were never expected from a person belonging to the civilized class of men known as Aryans. The word Aryan is applicable to persons who know the value of life and have a civilization based on spiritual realization. So civilization, everyone is living some kind of civilization only, but civilization which is based on the spiritual realization, that is known as Aryan civilization. Otherwise, economic development, a country may be, GDP is flourishing, is it's with respect to its world economy, the country is leading, is becoming that India is recently, news was that India has become, I think, fifth biggest economy in the world. Fifth economy in the world. So after USA, China, maybe UK, some other countries. So it's in the ranks it stands fifth. So but that's not known as the Aryan civilization. So the word Aryan is applicable to persons who know the value of life and a savage civilization based on spiritual realization. So not just based on the money, it's based on spiritual realizations. Persons who are led by material conception of life do not know that the aim of life is realization of the absolute truth, Vishnu or Bhagavan, and they are captivated by the external features of the material world, and therefore they do not know what liberation is. So they may be very, very opulent, they are very rich, but they don't know what is the aim of life. So although Arjuna was a Kshatriya, he was deviating from his prescribed duties by declining to fight. This act of cowardice is described as befitting to non-Aryans. Such deviation from the duty does not help one in the progress of spiritual life, nor does it even give one the opportunity to become famous in this world. Lord Krishna did not approve of the so-called compassion of Arjuna for his kinsmen. So, Aryan civilization basically is a Vedic civilization. So the civilization is based on the spiritual realization, not based on material prosperity. So in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu visits South India, so when he was on the pilgrimage to South India, so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu happens to meet Ramananda Rai. So on the banks of Godavari. So Ramananda Raya very respectfully offers obeisances to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu hugs him. So then further, next when a Brahmana invites Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for a prasadam, dinner. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu visits that Brahmana's house. So there Ramananda Raya comes. So Ramananda Raya and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they have a very lengthy conversation. So in a very secluded place, because others could not understand, may not be able to understand. So that's a very lengthy conversation. In that, very first this thing is that the conversation starts. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ordered Ramananda Rai recite a verse from the revealed scriptures concerning the ultimate goal of life. So this is the first question which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked Ramananda Raya in their meeting. So then Ramananda Raya replies, if one executes the prescribed duties of his social positions, he awakens his original Krishna consciousness. That's like here in this mentioned, Brahma created the four duties of four social orders. So all the four social orders became manifested. So why Brahmaji is creating? Because he knew that for the development of for the spiritual cultivation of the living entities, following the social orders, the following the principles of social orders is also very important. That's why Brahmaji created the four social orders as well. So then further, the Ramananda Raya tells, Varnashramacharavatha Purushena Parapuman Vishnur Aradhyate Panta Nanyat Tattosha Karanam. So the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, is worshipped by the proper execution of prescribed duties in the system of Varna and Ashrama. There is no other way to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One must be situated in the institution of the four Varnas and Ashramas. So entire Vedic civilization, it's also known as Varnashrama Dharma, was what basically based on what? Based on the regulative principles, based on the prescribed duties for every social order or spiritual order. Say in the social orders, say Brahmana, so Brahmana is supposed to do certain duties. Kshatriya is supposed to perform certain duties. Vaishya is supposed to do certain duties. So by doing those duties sincerely, what they were actually achieving, they were actually going towards Krishna consciousness. They were going towards the ultimate goal of life. So the most surprising and most astonishing fact from the Vedic literature is that even Shudras, by following those prescribed duties, they were also going for liberation. It is not that Shudras cannot attain liberation, but just by following the orders. So what is Shudras are supposed to do? Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishyas, they have some higher duties to perform, where they have to use their intelligence. Kshatriya has to use his power. Vaishya has to use his, agriculture, trading, all those things. But Shudra, so because Shudra is neither intelligent nor his bodily strength is so good like Kshatriyas, so no, he cannot be doing any, duties like protecting the citizens. That also he cannot do. So Shudra just assist Brahmana, Kshatriyas and Vaishyas. Just by following that sincerely, even Shudras would get liberation. They would go back to Godhead. That's the beauty of Varnashrama Dharma. So, and coming to the spiritual orders, Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, Sannyasi, in any stage of life, just by practicing those principles strictly, they could go back to Godhead. So that's how this entire Varnashrama is designed in such a beautiful way. That every human being, so what about only Shudras? Even Vedic literatures mentions about even lower than Shudras, known as Chandalas or dog eaters. Even they can go back to Godhead. That is the beauty of Varnashrama Dharma. That is the beauty of Krishna consciousness. So there Ramananda Raya is mentioning that, just one has to perform his prescribed duties in the system of Varna and Ashrama. Then they will get the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu. So in the purport, this is a quotation from Prabhupada mentions. It's a quotation from Vishnu Purana. This verse is from Vishnu Purana. So as stated by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his Amrit Prabhava Bhashya, the purport is that one can realize life's perfection simply by satisfying the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then Prabhupada quotes a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam. Atapumbir dvijasreshta varnashrama vibhagashaha swanustitasya dharmasya samsiddhir haritoshanam. So, O best among the twice born, it is from the first canto, second chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam. It's therefore concluded that highest perfection one can achieve by discharging the duties of prescribed duties for one's own occupation according to caste divisions and orders of life is to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, in any order, even the Shudras, actually what are they doing? By assisting Brahmana, Kshatriyas and Vaishyas, they are actually pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because Varnashrama Dharma is designed like that. Just by following them, just by assisting them, so they are pleasing Samsiddhir Haritoshanam. So they are pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this is the way how Varnashrama is actually very beautifully designed for all values, for all statuses, for all social orders of life. Just by following these, one can actually attain Krishna without any much difficulty. So Brahma, that's why Brahmaji is creating all these things, because these are all basic things for a human being to distinguish himself from animals, from animal consciousness. So further further it's elaborated that, how here, like here it's mentioned that, how Upavedas actually can, like Ayurveda, Dhanurveda, all these things are known as Upaveda. So how all these things became manifested from the Brahma's body, from the Brahma's mouth. So further, few more elements will be created. That's explained in the next verses. I'll stop here. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki, Nitai Gaur Premanande.